Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to continue the coverage of the capture of Bryan Kohberger, who has been accused of being the main suspect who acted alone in this horrific chain of events on November 13th of this year. And so we're going to be diving into what do we know. I'm going to tell you this. It truly looks like Kaylee was right about having a stalker. Because now as we continue to learn more and more, there's some credibility behind the stalker talk. And so we're going to continue to dive into what we're finding out after the capture of Bryan Kohberger. Let's dive into it. Bryan Kohberger, 28 years old, he is the man that is accused of the horrific events that happened at where the four University of Idaho students were allegedly stalking them is what we're finding out now. After this horrific slaying of the four University of Idaho students, he is said to have been stalking them in the weeks leading up to the murders and wore gloves in public places after the killing. Bryan is said to have been very scrupulous about not leaving his fingerprints behind after this incident, even wearing gloves when he entered a grocery store. Now, this is according to a friend of one of the police officers that has been assigned to follow him there. Remember, there were surveillance for 4 days as he was moving around everywhere. Who this anonymous source is that spoke up, we do not know just yet, obviously. But the source says he's not stupid and has been very careful. That's what the anonymous source said. So again, a friend of a police officer or someone who's been assigned to follow and track him down. Now, again, FBI followed him from Idaho to Pennsylvania. And what we later found out is that his dad was actually driving back to Pennsylvania with him from Washington. So his dad might have flew there and then drove back with him, which would also put some type of surveillance that would have at least seen two people in that vehicle. Now again, he was being surveillanced for 4 days. So someone must have been following him also to Pennsylvania. All along, they were just looking for footage, right? But this anonymous source says he's not stupid and has been very careful. As we have learned, yes, he seems to have been trying to be very careful. He was conducting studies on how to try to get away with this stuff. He was conducting studies as part of a project. Now, while Bryan was under surveillance in Pennsylvania, according to the source, police witnessed him appearing to try and avoid leaving any more DNA or fingerprints behind. So while he was being surveilled, they saw him doing what this anonymous source had shared. Okay. That adds a lot of credibility, which is why I'm sharing this, right? If someone had just sent me something in the email and just easily said, I don't know, you don't know me, but I want to tell you about this story, I'm not running with that. I'm not going to run with that. Yes, you can see a lot of these true crimers. They're going to run with anything that seems credible. Anything. But they're only going to one source. I don't believe in that route. So I want to try to at least have a little more credibility on where I'm getting these sources from. Now, this first appeared in Daily Mail. And so that's where it's like, okay, let me dig a little deeper into this. Here we find out that he was doing his best to avoid leaving any more DNA behind or any fingerprints behind by taking protective measures while he was in public. And so this anonymous source shared a good friend of ours was one of the cops who has been following him the last couple days. This is what the source explained of their connection to the surveillance on Kohberger in Pennsylvania. And he said he followed him into a giant local grocery store and wore gloves the entire time. Wow. I will say, I have seen people wear gloves in the store. I have seen that, especially during the COVID-19 times, right? I've seen that. Remember being in Trader Joe's and someone wearing gloves. Now, it did stick out to me. Okay? But this guy, come to find out, he's the main suspect. They believe, Chief Fry says he believes he has the right person that did this. That's his words. He's not saying let this play out in a court of law. I don't think he should, because he should confidently have the right guy behind. We still have to be sharing alleged, perp and things like that, right? Someone did kind of correct me. I think it was alleged suspect. I shouldn't be saying it that way. Thank you for the person who shared that. So I will work on that. Again, I'm a work in progress. They also allege that the prime suspect was stalking his victims ahead of the murders, with their cell phone locations matching up on several occasions. That's what they were sharing. That's big news. That's big news. They shared right here. Anonymous, please. That's this person wanting to stay anonymous. He was arrested only 40 minutes from our home near our aunt and uncles. We went to school with my cousins. His sister lives in our town. A good friend of ours was one of the cops who has been following him the last couple of days. He coaches with my husband and was telling him all the crazy details. He followed him into a giant local grocery store and wore gloves the entire time. He's not stupid and has been very careful. Also, he's been stalking them for weeks. Not sure if they ever interacted, but his cell phone pings followed their every move for weeks. So freaking scary and disturbing. I've been so invested in this case the last 6 weeks, and to find out how close he is to us and that one of our friends found him and arrested him is just crazy. That's what the anonymous source has shared. I sure do appreciate that the anonymous source shared this. When this affidavit comes out, we're going to find out more. Because as we know, Kohberger was arrested at his family's home on Friday following a more than month-long investigation. The source said Kohberger was arrested again just 40 minutes from where they live and that his sister lives in their town. The source has even more overlap with Kohberger, whose family lives in a small town in the Pocono Mountains. And according to them, he also allegedly went to school with their cousins and lives near their aunts and uncles, as I shared with you the anonymous note. And it's hard, I know, because it's anonymous. We have to take everything with a grain of salt right now. Once we have that affidavit, we can really spill a lot more beans when we find more on what is in these beans, right? But it is, I agree with this person, so freaking scary and disturbing. I honestly believe this would not have been the last time he did this if Bryan is the actual K-I-L-ler. If he's the actual perp, yep, I truly believe with everything we are finding out, he was trying to do something long-term and become a notorious serial, you know what. By what we're learning, that are being tied to this Bryan Kohberger. That's my thought on that. And some criminal profilers have agreed themselves, not with me because they don't know I said that, but just like this guy, we've all been invested in this case the last 6+ weeks, right? And to find out that he traveled over almost 2,500 miles to get to his parents in between for the holidays, Like, we don't know how he was acting. People have spoke up, though, right? And so after the murders, he first returned to teaching at the University of Washington, but later drove 2,500 miles from Idaho to Pennsylvania in order to hide out at his parents' Poconos home. Now, police, they have been on his tail during his cross-country trip with his dad and continue to follow him in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, where he was ultimately taken in. And according to students in his class, Kohberger, he acted as if nothing had happened after these killings had took place, which to me is pretty chilling. Like, he was starting to get used to this right out of the gate. Again, if he is truly the KILer. We have to wait for him to have his day in court. I want to be as respectful and even as professional as I can be about this. I'm not going to be cursing up storms. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. But right now, he's allegedly the perp. And so that's where we're going to still continue to find out even more about this. Don't you agree? People are talking, right? Now, according to students in his class, Kohberger acted as if everything was chill. Washington State University's online directory, they did show him that he worked as a teaching assistant for the university's criminal justice and criminology program. He was also a PhD student in the department. Multiple students in the program told Fox Seattle that Kohberger did not appear different following the incident that happened to Kaylee Gonsalves, Maddie Mogan, Xana Knudo, and Ethan Chapin, the boyfriend of Xana. So he was alleged to have been stalking mainly Kaylee, but stalking these victims. So my friends, there had to be some truth. There had to be some truth. There had to be. Now, with that also being said, once the affidavit comes out, we'll know more. We'll literally know more, right? We'll know more when that happens. Until then, we really won't know more. And so that's where it's like we want to be careful what we're sharing and not trying to just throw everything and anything out there, right? We have to be careful with these things when it's being presented. And so in an interview with NBC Philadelphia, Skylar Jacobson, shown here, he said in an interview that I would text Kohberger and be like, hey, you want to go for a run? We'd go for 6-7 mile runs at night. So when I saw it, I was just like in complete shock. It was so close to home. And that's what he said, that the pair, they were close around 10 years ago, and that during their runs, they had all of these positive conversations. Jacobson, he described the murder suspect as being uplifting and often talked about wanting to get in shape. And he said that there was nothing concerning about his behavior. And in a separate interview, Jacobson spoke about their friendship, telling WBRE, I would text him and be like, hey, you want to go for a run? Again, he shares that we'd go for 6-7 mile runs at night. And so he was completely in shock that something like this would happen. Well, that absolutely makes a lot of sense, right? We don't really know who he was. What we're finding out is from those people, his neighbors and former students. That's how we're getting to learn about this guy. Is that not true? Because people are now sharing, right? Of course, now that he's arrested, people are going to start putting two and two together. People are sharing all the time. Ben Roberts, a criminology student, he told Fox affiliate that Kohberger was confident and outgoing. but still appeared as if he was always looking for a way to fit in with those around him. That's what he was sharing. And so when Roberts was speaking about this horrific allegations against Bryan Kohberger, he said, it's pretty out of left field. I had honestly just pegged him as being super awkward. To find out this super awkward guy would do this, who isn't blown away? And Roberts himself, he began studying at Washington State University in August at the same time as Kohberger. Because he just graduated from Pennsylvania back in May of this year? Right? And so Roberts shared that, one thing he would always do, almost without fail, was find the most complicated way to explain something. Like he would go round and round about whatever it is instead of getting to the point. I'm surmising what he meant by that. Another student, B.K. Norton, she even shared about him. And she was a student in the WSU Criminal Justice and Criminology Department. And she shared on Friday that they didn't know Kohberger well, but didn't like him. She said, we interacted in class, but personally I was not a fan of Bryan because of comments that he made about the LGBTQ plus individuals. I shared that. I'm not going to dive into that too much, but that's what they shared in an email to the Associated Press. And she also shared that he was a little off, but I always thought it was because he was awkward and wanted to fit in. That's what she shared. And as we know, before he was even pursuing a PhD at the University of Washington, Kohberger attended DeSales in Pennsylvania. And that's where he graduated. You can see him in this picture when he was graduating. While there, the owner, Jordan Serelnek, he claimed that he had problematic interactions with women at his bar. Now, this was the owner of a bar that he was at. Sorry, I kind of skipped on that. And when I put my notes together, I kind of missed a section. But Jordan Serelnek, he is the owner of a bar. And Bryan allegedly was in this Pennsylvania bar, and he allegedly frightened women staffers at a Pennsylvania brewery, which was near his hometown. That's according to a report. And Kohberger, he was arrested again just Friday, but he was in Albrightsville in Monroe County, which is his hometown. And so several months ago, Kohberger visited the Seven Sirens Brewery Company several times, harassing the women who worked there. That's what Jordan Serelnek shared, 34-year-old owner of this establishment, Seven Sirens Brewing Company. And Jordan, he said that, he was here harassing his bartenders and his wait staff. So, really, this guy, what's his problem with women? What's his problem with women? Because this definitely almost speaks to, do you have something against women? And so the owner, Jordan Serelnek, he claimed that he had problematic interactions with women at his establishment. What was said, I'm not 100% sure. We have to also, again, a lot of people want to talk when things like this come out. And so we don't know exactly. But asking women who they were with and where they lived, that is definitely a problem. And he shared that he remembered a moment where he harassed female staff at the Seven Sirens Brewing Company near his hometown, and he told NBC that employees labeled Kohberger in their system as a guy who makes creepy comments, and said he once called a staffer a bitch for spurning his advances. That's what the owner is sharing. So, I mean, wow. They say that he, literally would, according to staffers' notes, Kohberger would have 2 or 3 beers and then just get a little too comfortable. They say his behavior was upsetting that the, brewery owner had to approach him, about it. And he denied that behavior. He didn't admit to him acting strange. He said that you girls basically are reading too much into things. But you know what? He never showed up at the bar again. That is according to the owner of Seven Sirens Brewing Company. Again, we have to take everything with a grain of salt because I am not there. He didn't tell this to me, but the owner of a well-known establishment there in Pennsylvania is speaking out. Okay? I will also say that can be proven by talking to his bar staff. So that's why I'm running with it. And so, here he was. Chief Fry said that officials at the school's Pullman campus, at the Washington Pullman campus, where he worked, were cooperative in allowing investigators to execute a search warrant at his home and his on-campus apartment. And the WSU Pullman campus and WSU Provost Elizabeth Chilton said in a statement, on behalf of the WSU Pullman community, I want to offer my sincere thanks to all of the law enforcement agencies that have been working tirelessly to solve this crime. She continued, this horrific act has shaken everyone in the Paluzi region. Moscow Police Department, they do continue to encourage anyone to come forward with any information as they're still putting pieces together. It's like a puzzle. Little by little, someone may have that in-between piece that says, oh, this is why he was here. This is where he might have dropped off that knife that we have to find. And, being with his dad, I want more information on that. That literally, I definitely want more information on him and his dad traveling together. What do they have on well, I mean, in a closed space for that long, we have to think about that part as well. Did it smell interesting in the car? Was there any signs of blood in the car? And so, we want to know more about that as well. Because, it's hard for me to believe, was he acting different? He's had a little time to come off of that adrenaline, I'm guessing. Because as we know, the police chief, he cannot reveal much about the case as of now, as Idaho state law prohibits officers from releasing information until he's had his day in court in Idaho. Once he makes his first court appearance, they will then be sharing more about the in-between stuff. This is his parents' home where the SWAT team went in the early hours. In the early hours of that morning. And then we find out this is where he's actually lived. This is where he's from. Is it where he was born? I don't know. And really all I truly care about is that we get justice for these young ones. What is this about the suicide vest? He is said to still be wearing this anti-suicide vest that inmates call a turtle suit. We don't really know outside of that, but really I would like to know more as to what are people around him because you know that news is traveling inside the jail that he's at, the Monroe County Jail. You know that that's a fact. He was tracked from Idaho. They have to have more things along the way. He had to take a lot of breaks. He had to stop for bathroom, for gas, clean up the car. They even stopped and cleaned up the vehicle. There has to be images and surveillance about that. Now, we did find out that it was not the actual year of the car that they were looking for. His car is actually a 2015. And so like the next series, basically the next series after the one they were actually looking for. But this guy who stalked his victims for weeks, man, there definitely has to be some truth behind that stalking. Because you had the vape owner sharing that. You had her dad sharing that. And really, there were a couple incidents that came up that we kind of wrote off. But it looks like they were actually right. And now that he wants to expedite his process so he wants to clear his name. I'm not too sure how quickly he will be clearing his name, but he intends to expedite the extradition process back to Idaho from Pennsylvania. So he wants to hurry up and get this done. And what clues could they have missed along the way? My question, how long? How long was he on their radar after? Was it a few days? Was this part of all those, 90 cars that were registered at the University of Idaho? And so how long after after the incident, how long before he was on their radar? Let me know in the comments what you think. How long after this happened was he on their radar? I don't really know, but I bet you, while we're still saying they had no suspects, because I even said, you can go back to a few of these videos, I'm like, they have to have somebody. And I've even shared for a few weeks that they said, we have not named a suspect. But now we find out that he may have acted alone, but who could possibly know about that? And people, his neighbors are literally saying he was like a lone wolf. His neighbors right there in Washington are saying that he was like a lone wolf. He was a loner. He would stay to himself, which, do you have to be outgoing about everything? I don't think so. But she said that the neighbors were saying that they rarely saw him during the day. It's like he didn't get home until like after midnight. One person says she didn't get home until late, and he was even later. And really, I don't know what that means, really. Like, truth is, he should have at least had, he should be there sometime. He should be there sometime, even if it was late, right? And so a lot of people are saying he was a lone wolf throughout the whole thing. And Angela Alvarez, she was a senior majoring in psychology at the WSU campus, first met Kohberger last August when he moved into Steptoe Village. And that's the apartments that you've seen images over and over of him. He filled the apartment above her and her husband, which had been vacant since they moved in January 2021. So the apartment he moved into was vacant for like 8 months, allegedly, according to her. Alvarez said that Kohberger's father introduced the couple to the now quadruple suspect. Nothing was off or suspicious. She felt he was another normal college student and let him know to ask if he ever needed anything. These are the apartment complex. Following their initial interaction, Alvarez said she ran into Kohberger occasionally, but he was typically gone. She said he would usually park his car right in front of her window, and it was rare to see him home anytime before midnight. Alvarez often worked night shifts in town, so when she got home, she normally got home around the same time as Kohberger. And she told the Daily Beast, I'd come home kind of around that time. We'd see him, I'd smile and say hi. And, she, according to her, she had no idea what he was up to. But it didn't seem like there was anything alarming or anything suspicious of him at that time. And he generally kept to himself, according to her. It was rare to get anything other than a smile or hello out of him. And I'm not going to lie, that seems kind of normal on that particular aspect, unless you ask questions. If you ask a question and maybe he just one words it and leaves, well, that might be a little okay, this guy is a little he don't want to talk. But after this incident of the 4 students only 9 miles away, Alvarez said she never saw Kohberger after that November 13th incident. But his white Elantra, which police spent weeks searching for, would periodically appear. Did she call this in is my first question. Maybe she did. I don't know. She said that she always sees headlights in front of her windows. She would see her headlights flash in front of his windows. Why would he do that? Once she found out that he was arrested and named as the lead suspect, she realized how all the pieces fit together. And his late routine nights, the lone wolf persona. And let's be honest here. Let's be honest. These girls, they partied. Where was he stalking from? Was he at their party and kind of keeping an eye on them? Because she says he did not come home until very late on a regular basis. But he's also a teaching assistant. He's a college student. This stalking is very much true. The Idaho stalker is probably what he should be called, or something along that lines. What kind of name fits him? The Idaho 4 stalker? Does that fit him? He didn't stalk or 4. I don't think he stalked Ethan unless Ethan was with Xana, and that's when the stalking. But it seems like he was stalking the girls. Kaylee said multiple times she had a stalker. And she seemed to be the one that was most worried about this stalker. So it's hard for me to believe that this is not true. That's why I'm running with the story. There has to be some credibility now that we find out that he literally was coming home late by someone who he parked the car right out in front. So as you're looking, if he parked, he can park right out front. We saw where things were being investigated around there. I don't know if I still have the picture. I probably changed it out. But we don't know, right? Now we find this out. It's pretty alarming, adding to the credibility of what she's sharing, of the stalker, of him actually stalking them out for weeks. She said she never saw him much, or saw him basically after this. Well, November 13th, he probably laid low for a while, right? Especially with the Elantra. But she said that, while police have spent weeks searching for it, that car would periodically appear. Wow, right? And so these pieces actually fit together. I'm going to just throw this out there. I believe that she contacted the FBI or the investigators into this. I'm going to just give her credit without knowing for sure. I feel like if she's talking to the Daily Beast, she better be talking to the FBI first. But Truth is, that's what she referred to, why she referred to him as a lone wolf. Because he was always to himself. She even said that he always carried a backpack around with him. I figured he was just working. With what that means, she doesn't really know. She doesn't really know what he did, right? He didn't really speak much. But after the 4 kids that he is alleged to have done this to, Alvarez said that she stopped attending class due to the widespread fear that was going on in the community. The apartment was her safe space as long as her doors was locked. That's what she was sharing. The eerie feeling is, I was not safe because he was actually my neighbor. Wow, right? Wow. And obviously this neighbor, that could be verified. I'm sure that some of this stuff is being vetted, I would think. I don't know. And another person, Gaurav Narang, Steptoe Village resident. Why is there a big G on there? But I know this is where they literally did their research. But Steptoe Village, this is where, he lived. This is where the residents are even speaking up about that. Yeah. And so some of this is WSU housing. This is why it's considered on campus. And Gaurav Narang, a resident and WSU PhD researcher, said that he came across Kohberger a handful of times in the apartment complex and lived on the floor above him. Kohberger was always friendly. So think about that. On the first floor was the married couple. I don't know if it was right directly. I believe it was directly below is what she is sharing. And she said that the apartment was vacant, which is a student. So I'm surprised they were vacant that long. But again, someone might have moved out, and the new semester is when someone moved in, and he moved in the new semester. So that too would make sense. But Gaurav Narang, he said that Kohberger was always friendly. And he said that the two exchanged numbers and talked about each other's research. According to Narang, there was nothing suspicious. That's what he shared. And he said, I even knew he drives an Elantra, but I didn't know that cops are looking for a white Elantra. I just knew they were looking for a white sedan, which anyone could have. Like, he must have only heard the story once or something to not know an Elantra was what they were looking for over and over and over. So he probably is not as close to it as many of us are, which... let's be real, not every single person dives into this. Now, anyone I've said, hey, have you heard of the University of Idaho? I haven't had a no yet. So he's just said, I knew they were looking for a white sedan, which anyone could have. So he didn't really think twice of it. Now, he said that although they only came across each other a few times, he said that he was always pleasant and even invited him for coffee and a drink. And he said the two never actually, hung out. He never took him out on that offer from their brief chats, though. But he shared some friendly bond. That's what he shared. It was casual, not really a friend, but still, I feel sad for him. If he has done it, it's shocking. That's what Garang has said. It is shocking that anyone can lead themselves to do this. That's my thought process. Everything about this is shocking. But what we want to do is get justice for these 4. That to me is the main thing. That to me is the main part of this whole thing. And so now that they have a suspect, after they got him, and so, I know that a lot of people were upset about the way it was handled, the slow release of details of this crime to the public. I get it. TikTokers, self-proclaimed psychics, and social media users, we all began to speculate and spread rumors. I like to share, I was spreading what I was getting, not necessarily from rumors, but from the media. And there was a few things where it was like, okay, the media, like for example, first were reporting that he was a 25-year-old. And so I don't think that didn't turn out. I know that didn't turn out to be true. So that's what I mean. So I think, like, even when I started, I was like, they finally got the guy. The first thing I said was 25, and then I had to correct myself during the live. So there was some spread of rumors and misinformation about the case on social media. Now, the father of Ethan Chapin, he stated there is a lack of information from the University of Idaho and the local police, which only fuels false rumors and innuendo in the press and social media. And so that was his thought process as well. And then later on, Moscow police, they're criticizing the internet sleuths for creating rampant online rumors and disrupting the investigation. And so, I thought that was interesting because even in a December 2nd news release that stated that there is speculation without factual backing, stoking community fears and spreading false facts. They also warned that people harassing or threatening those potentially involved with the case could face criminal charges. And Moscow Police Chief Roger Lanier, Captain Roger Lanier, he stated that tracking down rumors and quelling rumors about specific information and specific events that may not have happened is a huge distraction, which causes them to have to spend a lot more wasted time. And at that time, he said, we are not releasing specific details as we do not want to compromise the investigation. We owe that to the families and we owe that to the victims. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction. And now that they have a suspect behind bars, they can take the next step in getting peace for the victims and getting justice for the victims and the families. And truth is, my friends, isn't that what we wanted all along? This is a very heinous crime, without a shadow of a doubt. This is something many of us could probably not have dreamed of. And yet, here we are, finally getting some justice from what we can tell. And truth is, you're like me. We all thought this white Hyundai Elantra, we were looking for, 2011 to 2013. Come to find out, he was driving a 2015. And so just like me, we are all on like, okay, why did this happen? And is there anyone else that knows about this? We know that there's a chance that he acted alone, but is there anyone else who knew about this? Let's think about that. Is there anyone else? He has been charged with 4 counts of first degree. First degree. Which helps me believe, yep, they were targeted. Yep, he planned this out. And if you think about that, we want his day in court. We want to know what they have on him. But because of the way law enforcement actually handled this, I know we weren't happy with it all, but the way that law enforcement handled this, now I truly believe they have the right guy. I could still be wrong. But I believe they have the right guy. What do you say about that? Literally, what do you think about that? Do you think they got the right guy? Or do you think like I have to wait till this affidavit is out before I believe they have the right guy? Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know. Because when you think about that, Bryan, he was a big follower of the Joker from Batman. And he's seen by all accounts that this has been on his mind for a little while. Do you think so? Do you think so? Is there any truth to him making a lot of noise in his home on a regular basis when he was there like at around 1 a.m. in the morning? What? Because he didn't have much social media, so there's really not much to learn about him other than what people are telling us. If he was an admirer of the Joker, is that why he had a thing with these knives or something? There's so much around this. It's kind of freaky. There's so much around this. This is why I say this is not even close. Not even close to even uncovering what's under it. I believe when they release this information, we are going to be shocked in many ways. We are going to be shocked. Now, he has a public defender, but does he also have a team of attorneys? What this guy is said to have been, that he says he's innocent. He's shocked. He doesn't know how anyone can even bring this up. He doesn't know how anyone can say such a thing. He believes that we got the wrong guy. There's no way. But what do you think about that? What, like, if we have the wrong person, what does that actually mean? Because a lot of people who are talking about him are all over, like, they're along the lines of awkward, and they're along the lines of, he was quiet, lone wolf. What exactly does that mean? Are people truly under the impression he's been planning this for so long? One guy said he came back for his senior year and he was not the same person. If that is the case, how long ago has he been planning this? How long ago have they been planning this? Think about that. My thought process is because of all the studying it seems to be doing, all the projects that he was working on, I believe that he was planning this for a little while. But we don't have anyone currently saying much other than now we have a friend of a law enforcement who said, yep, he's been following him, and boom. Because law enforcement identified and began tracking Kohberger after identifying him as the owner of a white Hyundai Elantra that was spotted near the crime scene. And then through DNA evidence, CNN reported citing 2 law enforcement. So we have found out, it's been reported multiple times, but that this DNA was actually tracked back to him. It was tracked back to him. So here he is, a resident of Pullman. He only lived 10 miles from Moscow. He only lived 10 miles. This graduate teaching assistant completed his first semester as a PhD student. While he was a student, he committed this heinous crime. He was taking notes on how to try to get away with this. Is that not some of the sickest thing you can think about? Is that not the sickest? Come on. Come on. Now, unfortunately, Idaho state law prohibits an affidavit laying out all these facts, right? To be released until he's had his day in court. But we are going to find out a lot, including, I truly believe, the stalker theory is from him. I truly believe that. Because these girls and the guy, the boyfriend, this was, and as Kathy Mabu, the coroner has said, this guy, this crime scene was the worst she's ever seen. The cops who arrived there were beyond for what they have ever seen in their life. So if you stop and you think about that alone, if you stop and think about that by itself, because if they are now saying we had to put because even this picture of him, the picture of him is in what the inmates refer to as a turtle suit. It's an SUI. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on YouTube. They have to serve an audience, so they want me to try to keep it a little more PG. So I'm still learning what words I can and cannot say on these lives or even on these videos. But how was he connected to them? Did he know them on a personal basis? Because Steven Gonzalez is saying that there was a connection from him to Kaylee. There was a connection, which means that he knew them. You hear me? He knew them somehow, or at least Kaylee. And my friends, after multiple people say about the stalker, let's go. It definitely sounds true that he had to have a stalker, that she had to have, and this had to be him. Literally. Because, let's talk about these accounts that are showing up now, that are talking about him maybe under different names on Reddit, under a different name on TikTok. According to the media, he didn't have social media. But I feel like I found an Instagram account that might have been tied to him. There is one Instagram account that I feel like this is his. There was a post on there before these incidents. And when I look at the people that were following him, it truly looks like that could be the guy. Because he literally had family members that he was following and was following back. So I feel like, even though the media has been saying, no, that was not him, that he didn't have any social media profiles, well, I think that maybe he did. And with that also, let's also be real. If there's an Instagram with him in his mugshot, that's not him. You know that part. Now, did someone take it down? I don't know. He had a post, and then let's find it. That was the other thing, because it only had one post. And it might be private. Nope, that's still not it. I'm trying to bring it up for you guys. I should have had that one part prepared. My apologies. But while we're waiting for that, let me know in the comments, truth, do you think this guy did it? Do you think that he did this? I'm going to tell you right now, I feel like they got the right guy. I feel like they might have the right guy. And with that, they have DNA that's linking him to it. So outside of that, you really can't say much. But did he also go in through the door? Here is my theory. Theory alert. Here's my theory. He goes in through the sliding door. He's after Kaylee. And he knows, I believe that he was the stalker. I could be wrong. Please, just, take it with a grain of salt as well. We're going to find out more. But we're all theorizing, right? We're playing online detective. I feel like he went in through the door. His goal was to go upstairs because he's a stalker of Kaylee. Again, I could be wrong. And he does what he does to the two girls. They hear him in the second floor. And that's why Ethan is like, okay, let me go check. That's what I believe. He goes and checks, and then he's fighting the guy off. Now, we do know, if this is the right suspect they have, he had been training. He had lost a lot of weight. I haven't heard any accounts of putting on muscle. He's lost a lot of weight. He was taking on boxing. I don't know if they meant boxing and MMA boxing, martial arts. The guy was studying psychology. He was taking a survey on what criminals may be doing. He was taking a survey. With that also being said, we now know that Ethan had defensive wounds. Xana is said to have defensive wounds, which means those two woke up when they heard what was going on upstairs. Because in the third floor, here we go. You see where everyone was found in their spots, where they were found. You had Kaylee and Maddie on the third floor. You had Ethan and Xana in the second floor, and you had the two surviving victims. So I believe that he was going up to the top floor. I don't know if his original plan, that part I still, I would need a piece of the puzzle, and the affidavit's going to share a lot with me. So please, I'm just theorizing without knowing this affidavit. Play with me. Let me know in the comments what you think. They really, truly, I believe Kaylee was the target. We do know that they shared this was targeted. There have been some back and forth, but we have targeted, we have stalker, we have what we believe, I believe, went upstairs. Kaylee and Maddie were the first two victims. Xana and Ethan hears something. Ethan goes and, he's like, he's the man of the house, right? He goes, and that's why he's not in the room. Now, the coroner, this is where I'm not 100% sure on my theory, and this is where I'm probably going off of, what I've learned since then. Coroner says they were all found in their beds. And I feel like that should be credible. Coroner has spoken out on a few things. But then you get the 911 call about the unconscious person. Who was the unconscious person? That's where I'm still a little not 100% sure. I know it's a little hard to keep up with a lot of these comments because I know you guys are leaving some great comments because you normally do. But in the basement, the girls, to me, is why I believe they were unharmed, because the suspect ran out of time. If the two, Ethan and Xana, were already awake, this guy probably felt like he ran out of time. All along, we thought it was a guy. But if this is true, this would make sense why the people in the basement were unharmed. Because now, the suspect is like, okay, the police are probably on their way. The Xana and Ethan woke up. Why wasn't a phone call made right there? Because they're probably like, what's going on? Is one of them in a fight with a guy? Who knows where the screaming was thought of? Maybe they thought, okay, what's going on? I hear a lot of screaming. Did they see a bunch of rats? Or we don't know everything. Hopefully he talks. And also with that, we don't really know any other things when it comes to did he call in to that one guy's show? I forget the name right now. I'm sure you guys will know. Did he call into the guy's show? Was that him? There was someone that said that they were dating Dylan. I don't know how accurate that is, especially callers into a show. I'm going to be more leery about that than probably anything. The gas station attendant deserves props. I agree 100%. I agree a bunch of T-Rev. That was the name there. And there he had a lot of call-ins. Was someone associated with those calls? Was someone associated with that? We don't know. We don't know if this guy was part of his psychology ways let me now act like I'm like everyone else in tune to this. national attention grabbing crime. If you really think about it, that would be why the two girls didn't hear anything. They were way down there. But with that, did they hear something but didn't really pay attention? Because again, party house. And I talked about yesterday Kaylee's connection to Bryan. That connection, we don't really know. And I'm sure we're going to find out more. Will Steven Gonsalves talk before? Will he talk before this affidavit is released? Will he share what he has found out? Will he share what he has found out that says, this guy, my daughter is associated. I don't want to talk about it right now. That's what he shared, right? Dean Matheny, yeah. I've only learned about him, you know, me and my wife have conversations about like, wow, he's doing that thing all day. Like, I love his grind. And, you know, as I try to get at this, you know, the way I try to follow others as well, just to see, number one, what is their channel that makes them unique, right? I don't want to be cookie cutter. I do not want to be cookie cutter. So that's why check out T-Rev's channel. He does a lot of call-ins. Maybe you like the call-in. We're going to probably start doing some of that in 2023 that we're in right now. Happy New Year, by the way, everybody. And so this whole thing, one of the reasons why it has gripped the nation is because we would have never thought something like this could happen. Even though we know that things like this happen, but when we didn't know who or why, and look at all the people that they blamed that had nothing to do with this. I was doing videos kind of like, hey, stop blaming this person. Hey, stop blaming this person. Why is everyone blaming this person? This is why you got to take everything with a grain of salt, my friends. You got to take everything. Sure, maybe, you know, yeah, they broke up 3 weeks ago. Of course, that's a motive. Yeah, okay. But they ruled them out. Okay, yeah, we know. JDR, one of my longtime followers, thank you so much for being a follower this whole long. You were one of the first ones on the channel that have tuned in. And truth is, all we want is the right person behind bars, the right person to pay for this. We are not trying to just get anyone under the sun. Wouldn't you agree with that? Wouldn't you agree with that? Because now we know that according to people, he was stalking them for weeks. That's what a source is saying. We don't really know. We do, again, you always got to take it all with a grain of salt. But look at this guy. He stalked the victims for weeks and even wore gloves after this heinous crime. And really, if you think of that, if you think about it, we don't really know outside of that, right? If we did know, we would share a lot more. We would share a lot more if we knew a lot more. And what we don't know is why. What do you think about that? Do you think that there is more to it? What's significant at the Seven Brew company that bar where he was harassing women? Harassing the bartenders? Being disrespectful? That stuff shouldn't fly. It should not fly at all. But that kind of leads me to the question, did he have something against women? Did he have something against women? And here is where some of us were just talking about this, right? Some of us literally were just talking about this in the chat. Let's see. I just pulled this up. I don't know if it's just an edited version because they seem to edit it. But is this crime podcast caller, the Idaho, you can see that, trying to put cops off his scent? And so what is this about? We know the man accused. The revelation from Casey Arntz. Casey Arntz? I thought it said farts. See? This is what I mean. Who grew up and attended high school with the suspect, came a day after the teaching assistant's arrest rocked the world. Yes, it did. And so, taking to TikTok to address a clip from a podcast discussing the November, Idaho incident that had gone viral online. Arntz said that she recognized the voice of the caller in the clip as Kohberger's after the audio sent the internet into a fury. So this is what we were talking about, T-Rev's podcast / YouTube. In the call, the alleged killer, who identified himself as Dave, told the host that he lives in a college town and works with fraternity members who asked him how to commit the perfect. Well, let's be real. There is a connection now, because we have found out that he did a survey. He did a survey actually about the criminals. Did he not? He did a survey about the criminals, asking them questions. So does that also mean that while those questions that he said that he was working with fraternities was actually the criminals? Wow, that is a 2 and 2 together equals 4. And so, because he was asking these questions, but now, as you guys were even just sharing, this is where it could very well be. And so the podcaster, T-Rev, he did send the audio to the FBI, and the internet users are already reacting. Yes, because you guys were commenting on it. Again, because it's here, that's why I'm talking about it. Yes, you guys, we saw that stuff yesterday. But this was his actual survey. After committing the crime, what were you thinking and feeling? How did you leave the scene? Before leaving, is there anything else you did? How did you accomplish your goal? Please explain please explain what you were thinking and how you were feeling. To me, that is very chilling. But the worst one that gets me is, after arriving, what steps did you take prior to locating the victim or target? To me, that's the study that he's really talking about. Not the fraternity. Of course, to throw them off the scent, he's going to say that, right? That would make sense that he would say that. 100% would make sense. And what we do not know is it really him? This lady says she recognizes the voice. That is amazingly coinkydinky-link, right? Amazingly. And so in the call, this guy who identifies himself as Dave tells the host, who is T-Rev, that he lives in a college town and works with fraternity members who ask him how to commit the perfect murder. Now, again, T-Rev, he sent the audio to the FBI, and internet users are all over this. Thank you. It serves to compound fervent speculation already surrounding the case. And now its sole suspect, who some experts believe used information he learned as he pursued a PhD in criminology to own his skills. That is me. I believe he was kind of doing that. I'm one of those that believe he was using what he was learning to try to commit the perfect murder. And so with that, you had people who are even sharing this. You had this one, this TikToker, Casey Farts. See, it says, okay, so it's Casey F. Arts, Casey Farts, but the name is Casey Arntz, a former classmate, as seen right here. She was the one that shared this. She said she recognized the voice. Again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, my friends. But T-Rev posted, I am the guy who originally had this caller on the phone on my podcast, allegedly with T-Rev. Now everyone is saying this is the killer, but I do not know this to be a fact yet. So please let everyone know that he doesn't know this for fact, that Dave is that perp. The call, it begins the alleged murderer told T-Rev, who covers current and past true crime cases, that he lives in a college town and I've worked with at least 10 Sigma Chi members. And it shares, let me go back to that a second here. Sigma Chi, that is definitely associated with this case. It is adding up, my friends. Says, I found you today, the caller says in a portion of the call that has been clipped and reshared hundreds of thousands of times in the past 36 hours since Kohberger's sudden arrest at his family home in the Poconos. And shares, I watched your live stream earlier this afternoon and been watching this one. And the thing that strikes me as kind of weird about all of this is I live in a college town and I've worked with at least 10 Sigma Chi members. Could this be the 10 criminal members, former criminals, whatever, on this research he was doing? Or was there really a fraternity? I feel like he talked about Sigma Chi as a connection. I feel like where he worked with them with at least 10. Again, I'm theorizing. I'm adding context in my words. I'm sorry if you don't appreciate it. I'm learning if I'm messing up. So please, I'm sure some of you will let me know if I'm messing up. The person then went on to shockingly claim that every single one of them has asked me, if you're gonna kill somebody, how would you get away with it? Wow, okay? The person that went on to, I'm repeating this, went on to shockingly claim that every single one of them has asked me, if you're gonna kill somebody, how would you get away with it? Goes back to these questions, right? And trying to do it. Trying to find how would you get away with it? You know? And these ones, why did you choose before making your move? You know? After arriving. It's like before, during, after questions. I find that very chilling, my friends. Very chilling. Rest in peace to these 4 young souls. Please, Lord, please help their family get peace. And, you know, this bizarre statement, as it shares, it appears to catch the host off guard. But the caller, who speaks in a breathy, rambling voice, proceeds offering a strange theory of his own. Now, let me hit on that a little. Breathy, rambling voice. Does that also go back to one of the students who was part of the projects with him? That was a student with him who said that he would take forever to get to his point. He would just go on and kind of go every which way, but to get to the point. Does that not sound similar? That literally sounds similar. And so the podcaster at this point stops the caller and attempts to ascertain the situation. He says, so you said you worked with 5 Sigma Chi kids and they asked you if you can kill somebody and get away with it? Did I hear that right? He asked. Yeah. He said, yeah, the caller, who former classmate Arntz later insisted in Kohberger response, insisted is Kohberger that responds. I'm not too sure what that means. Kohberger? Is she just referring to him like that as a knock to his name? I don't get that. Sorry. But when the host questioned the person on why he did not call the cops instead of a podcast, the alleged killer's ramblings grew more scattered as he posited as to the mindsets of the college students he described when asking him such a question. Yeah, he repeated, this time more emphatically. I don't know if that's just a thing that maybe people say, trying to have interesting conversation, but like, at least in my head, it's always been these dudes that were in the fraternity. It makes me wonder, the caller continued, if that's a thing that's in their like culture. Let me say, is he trying to feed off of what some internet sleuths, again, when people were playing the blame game, they literally blamed the fraternity. They literally blamed the fraternity. Then they even brought up old stories blaming fraternity. Is he trying to really throw the cops off the track with that statement? A lot of this is kind of leading back to BK, as we can call him, I guess, right? Instead of his full name. A lot of it does seem to be Bryan Kohberger in some ways, right? Because this kind of leads to if he wanted to throw the cops off the track, well, yeah, why not throw out the fraternity out there? And so I find that pretty interesting as well. And the caller continues, it makes me wonder if that's a thing that's in their like culture. He's saying that. That's almost like adding to what the internet sleuths, well, I don't even know what to refer to them, because when you're blaming people without them even being a suspect, or that's different. I just think that's just wrong. The caller then offers a particularly strange statement to the conversation, suggesting that the supposed Sigma Chi students regularly ask that question just to test the person who they are asking. And shares, they ask to see how smart you are and what kind of answer you come up with. That's what the caller theorized, with his speech littered with pauses and heavy breathing. And someone took it too far. T-Rev, the host, he seemingly was perturbed by the caller's words, responding by telling him off. And he says, what kind of dudes would ask you that? That's crazy as SHIT. That's an outrageous statement, man. My friends, this is why you got to be a little careful who you're going to even bring. This is kind of why, like, I want to do call-ins, but how can I screen them? I remember listening to ESPN radio here locally in my area, and someone got on acting like they were associated with a professional, and they thought they had him. And then when they ask him questions, and he's like really short and sweet, they're like, oh, then they kind of cut it, realizing like we don't have the right person. I'm trying to be a voice for the victims. I'm trying to be an advocate for you to be careful and alert and safe everywhere we go. She talked of a stalker, but I don't know what happened, why they didn't go further with this. I don't know if there was ever anything filed. We don't know if they thought about hiring a detective to follow to see if anyone's stalking. We don't know. How could this have been prevented? My friends, you listening right now, how could this have been prevented? Let me know if there's a way. Could she have hired her own investigator to track and follow to see them? There were partiers, so they allowed a lot of people into their home. And should every pretty girl have security? No, you can't live like that, but we have to find ways to stay safe. And as the article continues, as the clip gained traction on the internet over the weekend, Arntz took to TikTok on Friday night, visibly shaken as she posted pictures of the suspect and her many encounters with him. And I had shared, because I already kind of dove into that yesterday. I know some of this I've even dove into as well, trying to keep it short and sweet. And Casey did share with that on there. And this was her when she was doing her TikTok. And she, this is a sad thing, but this person says that she went to school and she recognizes his voice. That's what she is sharing. Casey F. Arts, or Casey Farts, is her TikTok name. And her name is it's Casey Arts, I believe. What was the name? How quickly I could forget. Casey Arntz. is said to be her name, I believe, according to this article. But she said she went to school with him. She said that she went to school. And so she says she recognizes his voice. She went on TikTok and she was visibly shaken when she was on TikTok. In this video, I didn't play the video. I'm not going to play the video. You can go look her up. But, the video of the caller on the podcast, she says, I believe that's him. She's the former classmate at Pleasant Valley High School, and that's what she told her followers. Another thing we have to be careful for, as in the TikToker who placed the blame on someone at the university, a professor at the university. This TikToker who is a tarot card reader said her cards told her some wild, wacky story. This is why you got to be careful. This is why you have to be careful. And here's the truth. It became part of the search engines for a little while because people believed what she was saying. Again, another TikToker who's saying that his voice sounds familiar. Please, I know maybe this is something I shouldn't share. But this girl, that could be verified whether she went to school with him. But the matching of the voice, well, we should be able to find that out eventually. This interrogation that the police are doing, I'm sure, will be released in the later dates. And I hope to have access to that. I'm still trying to learn how to get access to some of this stuff. A lot of people like to put their brand on it. I'm like, okay, I'm not. Why did only they get it? I'm still learning. My goal is to be an advocate for these victims because they were taken from this world way too soon. So I'm just trying to learn, my friends. I'm just trying to learn. So forgive me as I'm learning. And she shares that his voice sounds exactly like him. That's her opinion. She says that. It's my opinion. Now, in an earlier video, I believe this is the video, she became friends with him through her younger brother during their time in school. The last time she had spoken with Kohberger was 5 years ago, and that's when she's sharing that they ran into one another at a wedding. And during the encounter, the 28-year-old who is now living in Idaho, not far from where now he's incarcerated in Pennsylvania to be extradited. But she shares that, back in 2017 when I spoke to him, he was clean after having a heroin problem in high school. Now, one thing that we do know is that this home has been described as a party scene. What past drinking? I'm sure there was, other stuff. I don't really know. I am scared of heroin. I'm scared of that stuff. One of the things that took my mom would die of AIDS. She was heavily into drugs. Those chemical drugs scare the crap out of me. Rest in peace, Mom. Those chemical drugs scare the poop out of me. I pray they were not doing that stuff. Should not lead to this. That has nothing to do with it. But he was alleged to have been on that stuff. Was he clean now? Was he clean all these years? We don't know. But back in 2017, she says, when I spoke to him, he was clean. He was doing security detail at a school. That's what she said. There is proof out there that he was a security guard. And she says that he seemed to be a lot better. Well, if you look at this now, maybe not a lot better. And so, truth is, this stuff, it gets a little scary, gets a little crazy, could get a little offhanded as well. And she shared on this here, this was a back and forth text. She recalled an incident where Kohberger had asked her to drive him to the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. He says, could you possibly give me a ride to my cousin's house near Luna Rosa's? Car broke down recently. She says, when? I can't see kind of hand in the way there. But, she talks about that a lot. Now, Casey's brother Thomas, he described him, Bryan, BK, as a bully who would happily note his friends' flaws and insecurities. And again, I dove into that yesterday. But, they're saying that in school he was kind of a bully. He was mean-spirited. He just was rude to other people to make him look better. And so this is where it's a little hard. But at the end of the day, we want to know, exactly more on this. Don't we? What do you think? What is your thought process now? What happens next? Now he's going to be extradited back to Idaho, served with his papers, and the next part begins. She even shares a picture in her yearbook. A lot of credibility behind this, so that's why I'm sharing it. She obviously knew this guy, right? She obviously knew this guy. What kind of student he was, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure, right? We don't really know all of that just yet. We do know that he has been caught. We do know that he's agreed to waive extradition because he's eager to be exonerated. He's eager to be exonerated because in his mind, he is not guilty. He's done nothing wrong. And you can see his public defender, Jason Labar, Mr. Kohberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible. Wow. Well, okay. If he truly is going to say that, but let's be real. He's supposed to say that. Why? If the public defender is supposed to defend. If my client is saying he has nothing to do with it, I'm going to tell you he has nothing to do with it. That's what he's supposed to do. But if he stalked his victims for weeks, there's going to be proof. And then he wears gloves. That's going to be in the trial if this goes to trial. My friends, do you think this will go to trial? I want to ask you, do you think this will go to trial or he will plead out to avoid the death penalty? We don't know what's on the table yet, right? We don't know what's on the table for this upcoming said trial or whatever is going to be happening next. What we are excited about is that he is caught. The main suspect is said to have been caught. And now we wait for the next part of this affidavit because we will be finding this affidavit. We're going to be covering this. And now there is finally, now there's a Wikipedia listing on this. What are your thoughts about that? This was a matter of time. This is going to give the full story, right? It's going to be updated as it goes, so you can follow this now if you want. 2022 University of Idaho killings, And so they even have a little map of the corner club where they were seen, the grub truck where they were seen, Sigma Chi house where they were residents. So all the way from there, corner club, grub truck, Sigma Chi house, that's where someone else was. And so this is the area around the University of Idaho in Moscow. My friends, I'm just happy there's finally going to be some justice for these kids. I have been beyond heartbroken. I have been praying daily for these kids because I was starting to get a little okay, well, how hard can it be to get away with this? And I'm going to be honest, I just wanted justice for these kids, and I know that it's a time-consuming. It's not something that happens overnight, so I don't even know. I should be a little more patient myself. And so, now we're going to find out if there's any truth to that scream that people say they've heard. Because the neighbor, Enon, he said that he heard a scream that morning. And if there was a scream, was it that scream or was it just, because he just wrote it off as it's a party house. There's no, that's it. That's what he wrote it off as. It's a party house. That's it. They do this all the time. But now, is that scream true? Would it have been them? Because if Bryan left because of that loud, again, the alleged suspect, if he left because of this loud scream, what's that about? Because again, Enon, the neighbor, said there was a loud scream that he heard, but he thought it was them partying. Where's the truth on that? You right? That we're gonna find out more about that as well. Wouldn't you say? And so, what do you think about the SWAT team doing that? They must have thought this guy is a threat in many ways, and we're going to bum rush this place and get him without. And of course, when you do it at like 3 a.m, that right there. Now, Pennsylvania is Eastern time. Someone was telling me it was 2-hour difference. I'm pretty sure it's 3-hour difference, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but let me just even say, because Idaho time zone is Pacific time, and Pennsylvania is Eastern time. That's 3 hours difference. So whoever shared that, I would think, but if there's 2 time zones in Idaho, that could definitely be a difference there. Because from what I'm reading, the northern part of Idaho observes Pacific time. Southern Idaho uses Mountain time. So that's why some would think that. That makes sense. Okay, I did not know that. I just thought they were on Pacific time. That makes a lot of sense now. So now, this guy having a PhD in criminology, an employee, I think this is the first time I'm realizing that, not now as I said that, but today, he was an employee. He was teaching after this incident. He was teaching. He went back to teaching. How is that not beyond measures? Holy macarolas. Now, my question, and the affidavit will tell us, did he have marks on himself? So when you find that some of the victims have had defensive wounds, my thought is this guy has to have marks on himself. So by the time his dad and him drive back, what's that about, right? Because he had to have marks, I would think. And so it is said that his dad has a 2013 Kia Forte that is registered in his name. And so what would that be about? But they said that an Elantra has been covered. I'm just glad they have someone in custody. And I'm glad that the family, they themselves have said, now we can get some relief. Now we can get relief. And as an audience, I'm sure that I speak, now we can start the next process. Okay, we can stop talking about that, but they still need to find that weapon. That's going to be a big part of this. If they don't have that, how do they can still tie them through DNA, but do they need more? Do they need more? My thought is they do need more. Kaylee Gonzalez's dad sees a connection between her and Bryan. And so, what can we speculate on that? Well, truth is, was they dating? Was she dating someone a little older? Could that be it? Was there, D rugs are involved? Could that be it? What kind of affiliation was there? And so now the attorney for Jason Labar, the attorney, he told CNN that Kohberger arrived in Pennsylvania around December 17th to celebrate the holidays with his family. His father actually went out with his family. His father actually went out to Idaho to drive back with him. To me, that is a pretty big deal too. Because it's shared here. This is CNN. His father actually went out to Idaho and they drove home together. He said Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra was found at his parents' house, where authorities apprehended him early Friday. Labar said his client's father, Michael, answered the door to police. Father and son were both cooperative. That's what he said. Labar said he has recommended his client be psychologically tested before court proceedings. My friends, let me ask you this. His public defender, who is now only getting to know him, he's only defending him in this arrest there as a fugitive or something, right? Why would he say that my client says he's completely innocent and then ask for a psychological test? Help me understand in the comments how he could ask for a psychological test if you believe he's innocent. I am beyond understanding that part. What do you think about that? He's requesting a psychological evaluation. How's that possible? How is that possible if you truly believe he's not the perp? If he's truly believed, let me ask you this. If this is true, if he is the who does that remind you of? What famous serial, does that remind you of? Does that remind you of Jeffrey Dahmer? Ted Bundy? John Wayne Gacy? Who does that remind you of? Let me know in the comments if this is him, what we have been learning so far. What is that? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It does seem like it does seem like, to me, that's a little odd. Like, the way he was studying criminals creeps me out. The way he was studying criminals. Wow. I don't know what this is about him being intelligent. I would say PhD, going to school. I don't know what kind of grades he have, but he's also a teacher assistant. This guy was studying this. And as Chief Fry says, we don't want someone who's studying this to do what he did. Those were his words. I'm paraphrasing though. And so here we have that DNA tests were done, then more DNA tests were done, but how did they get his DNA? We're going to find out. I allegedly believe they're going to have some DNA that was found in his car, this Elantra, where it was parked. So we don't really know. How did they get the DNA as they were tracking him? He was trying to be extremely careful. Did they find any DNA along the way? Right? So I don't even know. Did they actually use family genealogy to locate him? Because I think that they found him through genealogy and then tested the DNA from the vehicle, which also tied to the owner, which was said to be his mother. But I also believe that his name could have been passed to police before any DNA testing was even done. I believe he was on the radar because he has an Elantra. I'm sure someone gave a tip about his Elantra. Someone had to give a tip about his Elantra. Wouldn't you say that? Do you believe that someone gave a tip about the Elantra? Let me know in the comments. Do you think so? I think so. And so I bet before you know it, we're going to have girlfriends, ex-girlfriends. Someone's going to speak up. Someone's going to speak up. He's going to need some character witnesses for his trial. He's going to need some on both sides. Unless they find the weapon. If they do not find it, I think he won't be getting the death penalty if they don't find it, I don't think. I don't know. What do you think? I love your comments because a lot of you study this almost as much as I study it, if not even more. I'm learning how to study so that I can go deep. And at the end, I'm going to have like one big story. Not at the end today, but at the end of this whole thing. Right? So I'm taking my notes as I'm progressing through this. But they were stalked. I have to believe that this guy is the perp. I mean, he was even in the grocery store with gloves on. And then you have the cell phone data that shows Bryan Kohberger was often in the same location as the 3 sorority sisters and one of their boyfriends before he allegedly slashed them to death as they apparently slept at their off-campus home. And that's what a source shared. And so, again, let's be real. If they have cell phone data that puts him in the same area on multiple locations with the 3 sorority sisters, you best believe you found your stalker. This is your stalker, my friends. He is the stalker. I am convinced. Now, we know this guy is very smart about how he's doing this. He's literally, well, I mean, even though he's eager to be exonerated, why is he wearing a vest? So, to me, I find that to be very interesting in and of its own. Literally. No doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, that is what's going on. Because this dude literally, as we know, his friends even said that he turned aggressive in high school. That's what a former friend said about him. The criminology doctor student who is suspected of this incident, I shared with you Nick McLaughlin of Pleasant Valley, Pennsylvania. He told the Daily Beast that he was appalled when he learned that his high school buddy Bryan Christopher Kohberger was arrested on Friday. He said that the two had been friends during their teenage years. They spent half their days at Pleasant Valley High, and the other half taken heating and air conditioning work classes at Monroe County's vocational school. Now again, Monroe County is also where he was picked up on Friday morning. But he says that the relationship dissolved after McLaughlin said Kohberger underwent a personality shift over the course of a summer. He said that Kohberger had been a down-to-earth and overweight teen when they wrapped up their junior year. When they started their senior year, Kohberger was thinner than a rail. That's that quote I've been trying to look for. Thinner than a rail. And then he also developed an aggressive personality. And he began picking up boxing lessons when he was younger. And he was itching to put his new skills to use, I guess, according to his friend, because he was always wanting to fight somebody, is what his friend said. He was bullying people. Multiple people talked about him being a bully in school. Does all bullies turn into the alleged suspect? No, not at all, actually. But we do know that sometimes it does. Some people don't grow up. Some people don't gain wisdom. Some people keep committing the same things over and over and over. So you got to think about it. You know, were they stalked at that food truck? Was there a white car in the area at that food truck? Because now we know that Kaylee was very well aware she was being stalked. Multiple accounts say that, and now we have this. Wow. Didn't Ted Bundy act alone? He didn't have anybody. This literally sounds like he was on his way to being a Ted Bundy. Do not let this guy escape because he's probably not done. These young kids taken away from this world way too soon. Now we can finally get some justice. You know, and I understand why there were so many different suspects out there. And I understand why, even after they were ruled out, a lot of people said, no, I still believe with all my heart. Some people were swearing up and down they knew who it was they were putting out, you know, JD. And at first it was Jack S. Then it was JD, and you guys even know a lot more than me because a lot of people were sharing this. And so, I find that very interesting, right? And a neighbor even told Action News that she had seen the Idaho murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, multiple times going in and out of his parents' Pocono Mountains home in the recent weeks. You know, I hope maybe this is the person that put in a tip like, hey, there's a Elantra over here. It's not matching it. It looks like a white Elantra that you guys might be looking for, but you might just want to check it out. Here's the license plate. And boom, they probably said, hey, let's start digging from there. And there's this guy, let's see, what's he doing over here? What's he doing in Pennsylvania? Or we don't know. Until these things come out, we don't know. But I think we have to be careful. Don't you agree? I think we have to be careful. And so the affidavit, the probable affidavit, and this is what I mean. This stuff is public. But why are people putting this is public stuff. Why are people putting their watermark on the state public information? Let me know in the comments the purpose of that, because I'm trying to figure that out. Am I supposed to get a hold of this public documentation and then put deep true crime on it? I definitely don't want to be that person if it's public. Isn't it a service? You're the public, you deserve to know. And then you have other people charging for that. I don't understand. Let me know. I want to hear both sides. Is it because they're doing the hustle, they deserve to put their moniker on it? Okay, I mean, that would make sense too. Let me know. I've only had this channel since 2021. 2021. And so I'm still new at this. But why do all these people have this, like the murder sheet? This documentation did they have to pay a lot of money? Yeah, you should put your watermark on it if you have to pay for that. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. And so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to see what it is that they have. Well, this trooper shares a little bit on it, right? This trooper is sharing that, not necessarily on it, but he's the arresting officer, so he is going to do that. But what we want to know is it is public record. And so he is sharing that he's the affiant trooper, Justin. And so he's putting his stuff on there. But there's also these same documentations. Like, if this is public, why is there a moniker on it? I'm confused. Help me, please. Help me. But the trooper shares that he is of the, I need to open this up because I can't really see it all. But he shares that, let me open this even more. That's hard to read like that. But if you can read it, I'm going to do my best. But he is the person that has been assigned to get it. On Thursday, December 30th, the Pennsylvania State Police were dispatched. They were called from the Moscow Police Department, Idaho. And so, so we already know. On the same date, Bryan C. Kohberger was taken into custody. He was actually taken into custody on December 30th. Yeah. But isn't that Friday? Yeah. So that's a little off. Now, on Thursday, December 29th, that's when they started the charging documents. That's when they were putting stuff together. But they didn't arrest him till the early hours of December 30th. Right? This document was filed, is said to have been filed on December 30th. And so, really, as this goes on, we're going to continue to find out more. But Chief James Fry, he says that the department received 400 calls to the tip line within 1 hour of the arrest announcement. That, to me, is very interesting. Literally. Because when they had a name, That's why they kept saying, hey, now that you know who it is, whatever other information you think you have that could be important, please send it our way. Right? Wouldn't you say that? Now, be careful who you're trusting, because you have now, there's a psychic out there that is saying that Bryan is not the actual suspect. Stop friggin' believing everything you see, people. Some people will literally do things for the views, for the attention, for the growth, for the monetization of that. So we must be careful. But we are extremely glad the perp has been arrested. Aren't you? Because now we can take the next phase of this, right? What I don't understand is, why is he asking for the public defender? Why is he asking for a psychological evaluation if he's innocent? He says, because I'm only representing him on the extradition. I specifically said to him, I don't want to discuss really anything about the case other than what the extradition hearing would entail. That's what the attorney shared, because I do not have the affidavit of probable cause just like everybody else. That's what the public defender shared. So if all he wants to do is talk extradition, why is he now saying about this psychological thing? What do you think? What do you think? Really, when you really stop and think about it, a lot of people are going to keep coming out with this. We're going to find out a lot more than even what we know. What we know is going to continue to come out. Wouldn't you agree with that? I think that is actually, I mean, look at the statement, the press release. Mr. Bryan Kohberger has a scheduled extradition hearing for January 3rd, 2023 in the Monroe County Court of Common Pleas. The Monroe County Public Defender's Office has assumed representation for the purpose of this hearing. Mr. Kohberger intends to waive his extradition hearing to expedite his transport to Idaho. Mr. Kohberger has been accused of very serious crimes, but the American justice system cloaks him in a veil of innocence. He should be presumed innocent until proven otherwise, not tried in the court of public opinion. One should not pass judgment about the facts of the case unless and until a fair trial in court, at which time all sides may be heard and inferences challenged. Mr. Kohberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible. My friends, that is why he's saying that he's waiving it, he's okay with it, he's ready to move on, because he wants to quickly get exonerated of these charges. That's why he's saying, I have nothing to hide, I'm ready to go, let's go. That's what he's sharing. But here is the truth about that, right? Here's the truth about that. That's what they're supposed to say. I know, I already said that. Let me not repeat that. Sorry, I know. Because as we're doing this and we're still live, I'm seeing what else might even pop up. So that's why I'm making sure I cover all my bases if there's anything I've not. So something else keeps leading me back to that. And truth is, just like you, we just want justice. We're not looking for anything else. We just want justice. My friends, I'm going to stop it right there. I've been on here long enough. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's go ahead and cover some more comments a little bit. Let's see. Why would, if he is vegan? I don't think that he skinned anyone, so it's really hard for me to share. Max shares, Manny, I do think one of the girls collapsed and other couldn't get things out very well. We don't know what, but it makes me very, very sad. I'm with you, Max. Max, you remind me of something. I see what I mean? There's so much to cover. We know that the roommate's phone was used to call 911. Who was the unconscious person? Was it Ethan in the stairs? Let me know right now in these comments if you think it was Ethan that was in the stairs. One of the roommates come up, see Ethan. they think he's unconscious, call 911, or the person sees Ethan, she passes out, now she's unconscious, someone else picks up her phone and call. That's where I'm completely still lost. Copper, I'm with you there, my friend. So you got your daughter, a Rottweiler. Okay, so a lot of these people. Yeah, I love the comments. Thank you so much. This guy studied criminal justice. Don't think he doesn't have a plan for defense. He's definitely going to plead insanity if they have a lot. That's like the fact that they're already going into. You see, Audrey's asking the same question. Is insanity a plea? I thought it was either guilty or not. There was a guy who was recently found not guilty by reason of insanity. A college student, I believe, was on a drug or something, going through some tough something, and he bit a husband and wife. He killed him, or bit his face off, or did something, but they found him not guilty as reason of insanity. And so I find that to be very, very interesting. Audrey, great question, but it's either guilty or not guilty. I think that's right. Pleading insanity doesn't really work like it does on TV. I think that Audrey's right. You're either found guilty or not guilty. If you are not guilty by way of insanity, you're still going to go spend time somewhere, but you will see the light of day again. And so I think that is very interesting. And we got to really, at the end of the day, let's just be careful what we're sharing, right? Let's be careful who we're sharing it with, right? Well, let's be careful with all of this. I think someone shares a really good point with this when they share that someone just shared something here. Shoot, I forgot what it was. Oh, this person says, I think the person that saw passed out. That's what I was hearing too. But again, until we know more, we really don't even know more, right? Until we really get deep into that, we have no clue on that. And my friends, I'm going to close it out. Happy New Year to everybody. Let's, this year, it's not going to probably be much different than last year. Truth is, we just want justice. We want to be those internet detectives because truth is, the cops, law enforcement, they're all human. They're literally all human just like us, right? They're all human. They can miss things. It was said multiple times in this case that thank you for leading them to us. Thank you for all the tips. Thank you for everything that was shared. So I believe there is something behind this. My friends, I'm going to close this out. Happy New Year. Have a great one. And be safe out there. Be careful out there. And if you're interested in call-ins, let me know in the comments. I'm going to stay on for a couple minutes. If you're interested in calling in, because I want to be careful who is calling in, so I got to figure that part out too. But if you are interested in doing call-ins, let me know. I'm, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to do this for me. I wanted to follow a passion and be a voice for the victims. I wanted to follow a passion and be that online detective that I can't handle that BLOOD stuff. So I never wanted to go that far in the case. But I do love playing detective. I like detective games. I like the whodunit stuff. I like to see how they get the perp. Because to me, law enforcement, in many ways, they are playing heroes. Because if we were living a lawless society, this would be an uglier world. None of us would be safe. None of us. Because this is a crazy world we live in. My friends, I'm going to close it out right now. Have a happy new year and a safe one. Be careful. I appreciate you joining me in. I appreciate all the support in 2022. It's with people like you that follow where I can help do more for the victims. You can best believe we want to do a lot for the victims. You know, if I'm talking about Idaho 4, I want to get to the point where I can contribute to all of their GoFundMes. It's unfair, right? I'm not trying to do this for money. I'm trying to do this to be a voice for the victims. And YouTube does help with this to make this worth the while at the same time. I don't want that. This is not what that's about. So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn to do all these things, to do it the right way for the victims. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have an amazing, safe year. Be safe out there, my friends. Peace. Have a great day.